Hello and welcome to your Rangers podcast here on Four Lads Had a Dream. My name's Andrew, and joining me are two of my very favourite podders, Kenny and Stevie, to talk about probably a new low for Rangers. Congratulations, obviously, to Queen's Park on their victory, but from a Rangers perspective, Kenny, that was pretty shocking. I'm going to come to you first because we've obviously had Stevie's vlog already, but Rangers losing 1-0 to Queen's Park, who are sitting fifth in the championship. They lost the bottom of the league entry last week. In terms of the team lineup, we're not a million miles away from our first team. I think Rafael Fernandez, Bailey Rice, and Liam Kelly are the only three in there who you'd pick out as, not necessarily being first teamers. But there's no blame to be held on just those three players. I think a lot of this just comes down to the way the manager has been unable to motivate the team, and a team as a whole that don't seem to be able to motivate themselves or get themselves ready for the big matches. Or let's not say the big matches, because they do seem to be able to find a way to win in Europe and in old firms, in fairness. But against lower league opposition, against so-called lesser teams, they have time and time again let us down. And it's a really poor situation that we find ourselves in now.
Yeah, it's not good enough, is it? An abomination of a performance yesterday. And the writing was on the wall. You go in at half-time 0-0, you come out, you're actually worse in the second half. Look, we're going to dissect this. We're going to go over it, see where the problems are and where the issues lie and stuff like that. But, you mentioned motivation, and that is a major concern for me personally. You see that team turn up and it's all sideways passing again, same formation, same tactics, resorting to type, and struggling to break down a well-organised team using a low block. And as you said, and I'm sure Stevie will echo as well, fair play to Queen's Park, because they came a job to do, and they did it, and they did it very well. And much kudos to them, fair play to them, and their fans were excellent. And I don't really know much more. There is much more that I could say here right at the start, Andrew, because we're going to go through it. It's nowhere near good enough. It's not acceptable, and I'm sure we'll all give our opinions on where we are here and where we're going from here.
For sure. There's not much to talk about from the first half. Rangers were poor, didn't really impose ourselves in the game, and looked lacklustre. As Kenny says, come the second half, we don't look much better. Fernandez and Bailey Rice come off, Raskin and Suter come on. That by itself was baffling, because I thought Diamande of the two central midfielders was the worst and had a stinker pretty much all game. He's the natural choice, whereas Bailey Rice is someone who's trying to build up, so it would make more sense to build him up, but what do I know? Again, we're seeing this inability to break down a low block. We just cannot getting behind teams who play that way. We also saw the substitution of Hadji after a misplaced pass. Now, my dad did yell at the TV to get him off at that point, but there's a very, very good reason why he's not a football manager, because he banned them from doing backwards passes and all that kind of nonsense as well. So I don't think we'd have any players left after the first two games. It's kind of inexplicable that Ridvan Yilmaz comes on to replace him. Now, I know he plays as a winger, but he's certainly not the most attack-minded player that you could throw on. Probably would make more sense to throw on one of the attacking players that you have on the bench. Limited as those options are, that still seems like a better approach to me. The inevitable happens. Queen Park, with their single shot on goal, score from it after, again, stop me if this sounds familiar, but another defensive cock up at the back. There's definitely panic. Suddenly Rangers realise, oh no, we might not win this one. We might not just cruise the victory like we assumed we would. Tom Lawrence then does come on. And again, that's throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks, because this is the first time he's appeared. And then this genuinely made me laugh when it happened. Rangers get a penalty in the 97th minute. And I thought, even if we do score this, we've then got to go to extra time. And I don't feel confident that we can beat them in extra time. And naturally, Rangers managed to do one better and don't even manage to score the penalty. I want to highlight that Queen's Park keeper had a phenomenal game. 9 whole shots on target he faced and saved every one of them. I think it's fair to say that the later ones were good efforts, but the early ones were certainly quite comfortable for him. Stevie, we unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, because it's got loads of views. And thank you to everyone out there who's subscribed off the back of it and watched, because you're helping us grow. So we appreciate that. We can just delete your comments as well, so that's fun. Stevie, we got to see your reaction to that in real time. I think about 5 minutes before that, you said you weren't going to stay to the end, and then that made you stay to the end. What was the mood like after that full-time whistle, mate?
First of all, well done to Queen's Park. Cameron Davison and his team, supporters, as Kenny said, were great, and the team thoroughly deserved it. So I don't want to be or come across as being in any way but, congratulatory towards them, because they deserve it. And at times in the past, people have said, why haven't you said well done to St Mirren and things like that? And that's not how we do it here. We're not a better podcast than that. We can admit when we weren't playing well, and we do focus on Rangers. But, all credit to Queen's Park and Callum Davidson. They deserve every bit of it. And now it moves to Rangers. A humiliation, a downright disgraceful performance, disgusting application from the players from word go, and in all the criticism of the manager, which will come because by God, he deserves it. The players shouldn't be missed out either, because the way they started, anybody that followed the vlog would have heard me say Rangers were comfortable, but they're treating this like a training game. And that's exactly how they did it. Tempo was rotten, no urgency. There was an arrogance about players that played. Some of them were downright pathetic. Bayrami, Diamande, Igaman. It's not popular, but I'll put him in that bracket as well. Czerny shows at times in and out of games, but he's got such a good record, you don't give him stick. But all of them combined, their attitudes were rotten from word go. No movement, nothing there. It was all very stagnant. And the more that went on, the expectancy grew. But this isn't a new thing. Let's be honest with you. This isn't a new thing. It was the exact same against Fraserburgh as well. So, and why this manager persists on returning to the Haji Bayrami Czerny thing, which doesn't work. He stumbled upon 2 forwards up front, and for a minute there, we actually looked okay. It's quite good. It's quite nice. Dessers has been in good form. Why drop him? Why take him out of the team? None of it makes sense at all. None of it at all. So, no, just a completely disgraceful performance all round by Rangers. And if we can break it down a wee bit, yes, the Queen's Park goalie was good, but just like the Dundee United goalie who said he played out his skin, I'm going to be hypercritical and say the Queen's Park goalie, aside of the penalty, everything we threw at him was straightforward for the goalkeeper. He should have saved them, and he did. And what I mean by that is not a criticism of him, it's a criticism of our forward play, because the shots were rushed, they were not thought out. There's no movement, there's no creativity, there's nothing out there at all. So when Queen's Park did score, I thought to myself, and I said it on the vlog, we're in big trouble here, because we were miles off it. Miles off it. And I don't think it was a penalty. I've got to be honest. I think it's very soft. I don't think it's a penalty. It was a very good save. And we just didn't do enough. In the moments, in the last minute, Dessers goes through, instead of running towards goal, he goes towards the corner flag and makes an arse of it. And that's the difference for him. 3-0 up or 2-0 up against Aberdeen, he scores the third, no problem. He doesn't take that moment yesterday. And these are the moments. That was a one-on-one with the goalkeeper. Just finish it. And he can't do it. And it's moments like that. A penalty can be missed. But again, the run-up, the attitude towards it all, it just wasn't there yesterday. The Rangers have no right to be arrogant or expect anything, because they aren't good enough. Rangers are a very average, at best, football team who occasionally play well under this manager. They aren't a good football team who occasionally play poorly. That's not the case. It's the other way around. And the manager, again, substitutions, formation, selection, everything, Andrew, it's just not good enough. And there's a lot to be said about the outcome and what should happen after yesterday, and I will go into it, but it was a damn right disgrace yesterday, and every single one of those players that performed and the management team who set them out to do that should all be thoroughly ashamed of themselves, and I hope they're embarrassed, because they should be.
I can't really argue with anything you've said there, Stevie. And yeah, I again agree with what you've said. It comes in the context of this season, because as certain real oddballs on Twitter have been keen to point out, cup upsets happen, and we did see that the same day with Plymouth and Liverpool. But that's in the context of where Liverpool's season is, which is they're top of the league and look fairly comfortable. Not in the context of this season, where we're only in second because Aberdeen had a fairly horrendous collapse, and we've kept a decent home form. Away from home, we've been poor. European performances aside, the performance levels have never been particularly fantastic. Kenny, before I come to you, I want to play a brief clip from the post-match press conference, because I think it's going to be illustrative, I think, of where we think this manager is right now in terms of his response to this. And I'd be interested to get your thoughts on it, which I can probably guess, but, it's going to be worth putting it in context, as we always like to do.
Philip, will you consider your own position? Fans are already asking for your resignation.
No, totally not.
Do you understand why they'll ask for your resignation? There's very little credit in the bank domestically.
We know, again, we had these talks the last couple of months about building up something new. A few weeks ago, or the last weeks, everybody says, yes, everybody sees the evolution that this club is making. So again, out of the emotion, taking decisions and turn everything around, I don't think this is what this club needs.
But you must know that the fans aren't on your side.
I understand that the fans are in emotions now. I know a lot of fans were on my side 3 hours ago. I know that. So now are the emotions of this game, and I totally understand that, because I'm also angry and frustrated about that, about this result and going out of the cup, because it was one of our big goals and our shortest chance to go to win a trophy this season. We all know that. That's probably also one of the reasons that the team was nervous in the second half, because they wanted that so much, because they know how important it is for the club.
But Philippe, do you understand?
So I think the important thing for me to take out of that was that it's being positive that this is, one of the ways that we can, shortest way that we can win a trophy, like the quickest way we can win a trophy. It's the only way, realistically, we can win a trophy this season. Unless something miraculous happens in Europe, and I really wouldn't bet money on it, unfortunately. That's the last chance you've got a domestic trophy. And Kenny, for the approach that he appears to have taken in that, was that it is disappointing, but we move on. This is the worst result in 153 years of history. This is the first time that Rangers have lost at home to a lower league team in a cup competition. I mean, we're setting records all over the place, but unfortunately, they're just not good ones. And for me, I think the manager's in an untenable position right now. I certainly believe that Stevie thinks the same. I'll be shocked if you think otherwise. But talk me through where you're at following this result.
Okay, in my mind, he's done. You can't recover from a result like that yesterday. Now, the performance is already, as we've already said, is absolutely appalling. But you would just about sneak that if you were winning the game. But he didn't win the game, and he didn't deserve to win the game. And we've watched this. We that clip where Stevie's asked some really tough questions of him there, and he doesn't cope with it very well, does he? To me, he actually has a hint of the Paul Le Guins about him here. I actually think it's that bad at the minute, and the comparison is there because you look at our season over before Valentine's Day, and Paul Le Guin was very similar. And look, I've actually this is a strange thing to say, maybe, right? But I was just numb yesterday. Didn't feel much about it. And as the day today I'm talking about has went on, I've got angrier and angrier and angrier about this. And it's not even so much the defeat or the performance. It is actually Philippe Clement's reaction to it that really pissed me off. It's quite delusional. I think he has no real concept of where fans are at this minute in time. And I expected him to be sacked today. I've got to be honest. I think there is, as Stevie and Davy Edgar over at Heart and Hand had actually said to him yesterday, there is no coming back. You are done in the eyes of the supporters here. You're done. And, you know, the very fact that our board, our CEO, our chairman, our investors have looked at that today and done nothing about it is the biggest concern for me. And the longer it's went on today, the angrier I've got about it. And I don't know what to say. I'm 54 years of age. I'm 55 shortly, and it's the worst result of my lifetime. I can't remember anything like this. I've seen people compare it to progress, and you're kidding. I don't even think it's comparable, that, to me. And yeah, we had some poor results in the lower leagues, but there's a context to that. Where over the course of the season, doesn't matter who you're playing, you know, if you're off it, you're going to lose a game or two, and we did over the course. This is a must-win game. It's a must-win competition. The three of us sat here last Friday and discussed this and said that the Scottish Cup was non-negotiable, and for our players to go out and perform as badly as they did is a damning indictment of our manager. Because it's his responsibility to get those players. Now, if we can go and get up for a game against Celtic at home or Spurs at home, I expect every single game we play, for every single minute of every single game, the same application, the same desire, the same commitment, and we're getting none of that off of this mob. And I am actually at the point where, as my son said to Stevie just before we come on, my son's actually pointed it out to me. We've got 6 months to wait before we've got an actual competitive domestic game to play again, because we're not winning that league. Yeah, he can turn around and polish whatever kind of turd he wants by turning around and saying, you know, how does he get out of this by getting results? I think he has to understand that he could go unbeaten from now to the end of the season in this league, and nobody is going to give two hoots about it. None. Because we're not going to catch them. And even if we were to beat them twice, it is exactly what we've been saying on this podcast all season. All it's going to take is the first bad result, and everybody's going to snap again. Now, the board would do well. Patrick Stewart, our new CEO, would do very well to understand exactly where the fans are on this, because I'm not sure how you two guys feel, but I've got this funny feeling that this is about to turn beyond toxic, actually. It's toxic is when people are angry. I think the anger is beginning to subside at this minute in time. I think there's now becoming an anger that is tinged with apathy. And when the apathy kicks in, you're done. As a football club, as a board, they have to address this very, very quickly. And Philippe Clement has dropped in 43 games domestically since the Motherwell game that we lost. He's dropped or not won 18 of them. but he's talking about progress. He's talking about, building and a rebuild and all these things. It's nonsense. There is not a hint of progress about this. If you can't get up for, as he says, the shortest, whatever way he put it, it's the quickest way to win a trophy. 4 games you've got to play. And in the first hurdle, they fall flat on their face. So that, whether he likes it or not, falls on him. And I would like, very quickly, guys, I would like the board to act now, this week, very, very quickly. But I would like them to turn around and get a couple of, and even as interim bosses, a couple of ex-Rangers players just to walk in. And I don't even care how experienced they are. What I'm actually looking for is people to go into that dressing room and weed out those guys that aren't mentally capable of playing for Rangers. Because on that performance yesterday, and as Stevie has turned around and pointed out, Fraserburgh, we look at other games, Morton last year, Partick Thistle last year, there is so many of these guys but their mentality is all wrong to play for a club like ours. And frankly, so is Philip Clements.
Completely agree, mate. Stevie, season ticket renewals are coming up soon. I think if the board decides to stick with this manager, and by all accounts, it looks like they're going to try to. I think, as Kenny says, next bad result is going to just create more and more anger. Hey, it's only Tynecastle away next week, right? So I think that Kenny's right in that anger is just going to continue to build. And we spoke last week, why does Phil Clements stick around? And my first response was because he's not doing it for free. And I think that's an important point. He's not going to walk away from the football club. I wouldn't, because you're getting paid not an insignificant amount to be there. So the onus for me is on the board to act, as Kenny says, act quickly and remove him, because otherwise, not only is it going to cost the board in terms of the on-field results, but it's going to start hitting them in the pocket as well, because I don't see many fans eagerly signing up to say, I'd love another season of what we've just witnessed here. And that's what is basically on offer, I think, as things stand.
And they shouldn't. But we'll get to that in a wee second. A wee bit of context to the questions asked the manager. On the way down from the gantry yesterday to the press room, which is a short walk, there went the people that stopped me and David and demanded that we tell him in no uncertain terms, and we, it wasn't as politely or whatever as we did it. He was asked at Dundee if he would consider his resignation and if he would go by, I think, Andy Newport, 0 record. He has been asked it since, and just before I asked it, Andy Devlin of the Sun asked him if he was expecting this boardroom to act against him and he was fearing his job, and he said no. That's why I then asked him if he would consider his position, because the fans are calling for his resignation. That wasn't an emotional moment. That wasn't anything. That was exactly what I had heard from tens of people on the way down to that room. Tell him to go, get him out. So that wasn't a surprise or an emotional moment. To say that the fans weren't on his side, again, is a fair comment. Now, in a stadium of 50,000, you will not get 50,000 agreeing with me or anybody. That's just the way it goes. But I think the comments were fair, and he needs to be aware of the feeling towards him by large. And that moves us on to season tickets and things, and people shouldn't be renewing. That's the truth of it. That's the truth of it, because why would you sign up to accept a boardroom that on the face of it is happy and content with second place? Because if nothing's moved them until this point, and then you get a moment like yesterday, which is a line in the sand moment, then this boardroom, and they can have all the good intentions in the world, and you can buy into a project, and we don't want to keep going through managers. Absolutely, I get it. But that doesn't count if you don't find the right one. Beale, Van Bronckhorst, were all removed for worse. And quite a few people have reminded me today about how I was against Gio and stuff, and Gio was this and that and everything else. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has done nothing since he left Rangers. So I'm putting that just as a point to make. I think people look on that a bit more fondly than the actual performances at the time when he got removed. We were 9 points clear, or 9 points behind rather, and dwindling. So I think with regards to the season tickets, genuinely, why should anyone sign up to a board that's accepted second place? And until that changes, until they show us some vision, until they show us some momentum, I take it as quite a slap in the face that they're silent today and have done absolutely nothing about this. And there should at least have been leadership and direction. And do you know what else as well? And I'm seeing anger towards Patrick Stewart, because you can go around as many hospitality boxes and lounges as you want before games, asking for this, that, and everything else. If you don't speak to the rank and file, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, I'm a rank and file guy, guys that go and stand in the terraces, your Calvins and your guys that go everywhere that I know, your Ian Martins and all that kind of stuff, all these guys, Jim Murdoch, the guys that sponsor us, who are there every single week putting in thousands of pounds worth of money to sponsor games and all sorts. See, if you don't talk to the right people, you'll just lose faith, because everybody now is putting Patrick Stewart in the same boat as somebody who's just a yes man. And I warned him, said to him, this is how it will turn out. And I'm like any. I think I'm slightly more different. I think there's an anger now. When you see a slap in the face, which I consider this to be towards us by inaction, then I think it is. And people will say, Stevie, where are you finding the money for that? The bottom line is that this is why we've got very rich investors, and they are rich. John Halstead, etc. If you don't want to put money into the football club, and you don't want to put any more, and you don't want to try and fix this, then move aside for somebody that can. Make your shares available and move aside, because stagnating is doing absolutely nothing but letting other people get further and further ahead of us and other teams catching up towards us. And you may find that a silly statement, but it's true. Other teams are gathering momentum while we are sitting stagnating. Now, they will not get caught for second place. That's not the point. But the more we lower our standards, the more others will catch us. And it's frankly not good enough. And I think a lot of people in that boardroom, as much as they might be Rangers fans and trying to do what they think's best and try not to rush into emotional judgment and everything else and blah, 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 that should have been a line in the sand moment for absolutely every single one of them. There's certain standards, and we're miles away from being anywhere near good enough for this club.
Yep, agreed. Kenny, we when Patrick Stewart and Fraser Thornton were both appointed, we talked about them and said if they were empowered to make their own decisions, then we would back them. We want to see them, making progress and doing things. And we spoke at the time that it wouldn't be a quick process either to turn around some of the malaise that set into the football club. That being said, this is the kind of decision that you have to be making if you want to be the CEO, if you want to be the chairman. Because, as Stevie says, you're going to just encourage this stagnation. And Stevie's right in that we're not going to get caught for second. I don't think any other team has got the ability to put together a sustained run over the course of a season. But where does that leave you? Settling for second place and maybe a good run in the Cups and occasionally a good run in Europe because the team can turn it on for that. That's unacceptable for Rangers. We should be winning at least one shiny thing, and ideally that shiny thing being the league, every single season. We should be winning at least one of the Cups every single season. Ideally, we should be winning everything every single season, but those days seem quite far away at this point. I think that not only the board, but also the executive team there in Patrick Stewart and Fraser Thornton have got this big decision to make. And I think it should be quite clear, if it's not already to them, that the fan base aren't really going to be in a position to tolerate this going forward. They need to do something.
The longer this goes on, the more Patrick Stewart and Fraser Thornton will be tarred as the same brush as the boardroom are currently looked upon, which is willing to settle for second place and willing to admit that results like yesterday aren't a game changer and are normality. If you don't act after yesterday, you're basically saying these things happen and these things should never happen to Rangers Football Club.
Yeah, And we've seen in the past, one-offs can happen, but this isn't a one-off. This didn't come out of the blue. We knew that Rangers had the ability to cock up this badly in them. And unfortunately, they just demonstrated it really effectively this past weekend's game. So, Kenny, I mean, we've discussed the Boardroom team in the past before, but where are you at in terms of Patrick Stewart and Fraser Thornton in terms of how they should be acting going forward?
No, I couldn't agree more with you, Andrew, because the simple fact is that all three of us here, I'm 90 odd percent. I would suggest, and I've never seen anything like that, over the last 24 hours. 90 odd percent of the support want him gone. It is that simple. They want that manager to go. Now, the simple fact is, and this might be a little bit convoluted, might be a wee bit long-winded, but I'll try and be quick. I'm 54, as I said, and I watched the Rangers team in the 70s and watched the bad times in the 80s, seen the good times in the 90s, seen the tit for tat, the 2000s, and the shit show, the 2010 to now. And look, football has its ups and downs, and everybody knows this, right? But winning trophies is in Rangers' DNA, or it's supposed to be. And that expectation level has been there for 150 years, and it's just the way it is. And at this minute in time, and I've noticed this since the minute Steven Gerrard left, that almost by the month, you can feel a lowering of expectations and a lowering of standards and a lowering of, how would you put that, the want to do well. There's an acceptance at this minute in time. There's almost a feel about it coming from within the corridors of power in Ibrox that Celtic are too powerful, we can't do anything about it. We've won 3 trophies in the last 42, and I think they must have won 30-something of them. That's where we are at this minute in time. And the simple fact is that the onus, the responsibility, that lies with our board, because they've overseen this mess that we now find ourselves in. And I totally agree with both of you, by the way. And what Stevie said about yesterday's result should never be acceptable, not ever. And I am long past the tolerance levels of, but they're going to have to take their time and make decisions. No, there is no genuine reason to keep this guy now. We have regressed over the course of this season. We're actually, there is a real, there is a real stubbornness about this guy that, as we've already discussed, he stumbled across playing with Egerman and Danilo, playing with 2 kind of straight strikers, in his front line. And we've seen it every single time that's available to him. It's in his DNA. He doesn't want to do it. And you're sitting giving it, well, why are we watching that in that first half yesterday, where it's clear as day that this is just not very good? This is rubbish that we're watching. Now, Fraser Thornton, the chairman, is a season ticket holder. He's the kind of similar age to me. He knows exactly what I'm talking about here. And nobody's ever going to tell me that he doesn't get this and he's fully aware. So Patrick Stewart is the CEO. He's been at one of the biggest football clubs on earth for nearly 20 years. You're not going to tell me, nobody's going to sit there and be able to tell me that he doesn't get that this isn't acceptable. So the very fact that nothing has been done today kind of suggests and alludes to what Stevie's saying, that fans are just going to tar them with that brush, that they are just there as yes men for that board of investors. And I don't know what else you can say about this, actually. I am sitting here today looking at that performance yesterday, the same as every other Rangers supporter. And as I say, 99% of Rangers supporters want that man sacked today. And the fact that there's been nothing said, no statement, no address to the fans, no air of confidence about Rangers, nothing. There's been nothing about them whatsoever. Tells you all you need to know that this club is going nowhere as it stands. Absolutely nowhere. We have the wrong manager. I'm questioning this board. I've questioned this board many, many years, but I question what's going on at this minute in time in every aspect of the football club. I've got more questions now today than I had yesterday. That's where I'll leave that. I just find it mind-boggling that nothing's been done.
The legacy of this boardroom, Andrew, is Rangers are no longer a big football club because they don't act like it, they don't behave like it, they don't make demands of it. And we talk about being a big football club, we talk about things happening, we talk about demands and our DNA and what we are. That DNA and that ethos that we live by is slowly but surely almost eradicated thanks to the leadership of this boardroom. Now, they're all nice guys, all big Rangers men, but it's been failure after failure after failure. And we are staring down the barrel of being completely left behind by a Celtic side who are a very good side. They're well oiled, posting record profits everywhere, very well run. And we've allowed all that to happen and sat and watched it and flung money down the drain left, right and centre. The legacy of this boardroom is watching that happen, watching all our records diminish, being comfortable with being second and making this football team or this football club become somebody that we talk about used to be a big football club. And as harsh as that might be, that's the reality of their leadership at the moment in time. When you accept moments like yesterday and stick your head in the sand, that's what it's becoming.
For me, what it comes down to is if you want Rangers Football Club to be successful, and I have to hope and believe that this board do, then you need to start taking some drastic action, because clearly whatever you're doing at the moment isn't working. Because as Stevie says, you're just seeing an ongoing decline in this football club. And I don't like that. I don't think it's acceptable. And I don't like talking about it particularly either. Hi to all the Celtic fans watching, by the way. Thank you for your views. You're helping the channel grow, and we appreciate it immensely. But it's, I mean, as good as the viewership will be for this pod and the vlog and everything else, it's not fun. I would much rather, us get 2 views and Rangers be winning everything all the time. Although the views are a good bonus, and we thank everyone for tuning in and watching.
Can I just say something on that? There's
Yes.
been quite a lot of gloating and stuff like that, and I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with it. Personal abuse will get deleted and you'll get banned from the channel. But if you want to come on and gloat and 4 lads had a nightmare, it's no fun. But it is what it is at this moment in time. So yeah, people view and comment that don't support Rangers, then that's up to them. But this is a Rangers podcast, so we're going to concentrate on our own club.
Mm-hmm. And it's always good fun. I mean, it's not my idea of a good time, but cheers for tuning in anyway, lads. Look, folks, these are never easy podcasts to do, particularly in the context of just a really terrible loss for the football club. But we're keeping at it. We're going to keep putting the effort in, even if the players and manager aren't. So I want to thank my 2 lovely guests. Kenny, first of all, thank you so much. I wish that our podcasting history together contained much more highs rather than lows, but we are where we are, unfortunately.
No, thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Stevie. My last word on it, standards, guys, they're just not there.
Yep, absolutely. Stevie, thank you for your service. The vlog now tonight. Always fun to go through and have a little therapy session with you, mate. But yeah, we move on as we must. We're back on Thursday. Well, I say we'll be back on Thursday. Neither me or Kenny will. We're taking the day off. Stevie's going to be looking after some of the other guys on the pods to preview, I'm sure, what will be a straightforward game against Hearts up in Tynecastle. So thank you again, mate, and look forward to checking that out once it's done.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Just one final thing for me. Kenny talked about ages and all that. I'm into my 40s now, and I've had a season ticket for 30 odd years. The only thing I want is Rangers to be winning. It's the only thing I care about. It's the only thing that drives me when I'm talking about Rangers or doing podcasts and things like this. Is a free platform for people to come and watch and hopefully enjoy what we do. And all I ever try and be is honest. There's no question in my mind that I am right all the time or get it right or get press conference moments right and everything else. But what it is honest and it's truthful. And people talk about Stevie does things for clicks and everything else. I couldn't care less. If I'm sitting in a presser or whatever else, you boys know me, I'm hurting as much as the guys that are walking home and dejected and everything else. So believe you me, right from the days of going on the Fort William Rangers supporters bus at 10-year-old and all that sort of stuff, then all I want is for this football club to be back to some sort of standards that they held before and certainly don't now. That's for sure. Appreciate everybody watching, tuning in. Appreciate all the nice comments. I appreciate all the feedback. If they aren't nice comments and people have got a point of view, people have got things they want to ask, people have got things they want to ask me, I'm very approachable. I appreciate everyone that gets involved.
Thank you, Stevie. Thank you again to everyone who's tuning in and watching, because you guys help the channel grow. You're why we do it. Hopefully, we're providing a reflection of your views and thoughts. If we're not, if there's something you want to say, if there's a point of view you think is not being discussed, let us know in the comments. If it's about how other teams are better, I'm still not going to countenance that. I mean, I love banning people from the channel. It, gives me small joy, and that's great. So, if you want to, that's super, but you won't see it on the channel. We thank everyone for tuning in, as ever, watching, listening, just commenting. It's all good for us, and it helps us grow and makes us feel like it's worthwhile what we're doing. So we thank you for that. We appreciate everyone who has checked us out, and until we talk to you again, goodbye for now.
Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clyde Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, along with Art of Gold. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.